Yeah, and it wasn't like I was neglecting it. I mean, I couldn't read enough, in terms of sports psychology, and I was just trying to digest everything I could. But it was, in hindsight, it was that lacking that authenticity. I wasn't letting myself be myself. I was trying to force it. I don't even know who that guy was. I was like just trying to stuff myself into this box that I thought I was supposed to be in. Like that kind of, like, I ski my best when I'm just relaxed, when I'm just kind of detached from the outcome, and just I mean, I'm pretty carefree with it, but I just would go into this mode where I'm like, music on, mean mug, I'm like, I the tiger kind of guy, and I'm like, well, that's not even me. I figured it out. I don't want to say too late, because I figured it out, and some people never figure it out, so that's okay. But in hindsight, it's just so obvious what I was doing wrong.
All right, what's happening, folks? Welcome back, or welcome to the WaterSki Podcast. If this is your first episode, my name is Matteo, and the goal of the WaterSki Podcast is to promote the sport of water skiing. If you stumbled upon the sport, welcome. In any case, episode 39 with Trent Finlayson, actually part 2 of my interview with Trent. This episode is brought to you once again by the Flowpoint Method. So the Flowpoint Method is a brand new online water ski training program developed by Jenny LeBeau and Marcus Brown. Episode 10, long dreads, makes videos. You try to emulate his offside turn as I do. Marcus Brown, that guy, who was also, as I said, one of the guests of this show. And performance in any sport depends really on a lot of factors, and water skiing is no short of that. And so Jenny and Marcus really adopted a holistic approach in creating the Flowpoint Method for those who are truly committed to take their skiing to the next level. They cover technique, fitness, nutrition, mindset, really holistic approach for a better experience on the water. Simple as that. I love it. I've been a part of the program for a while now, and they've just kicked in last week their in-season training. So I invite you to check it out through the link, thewaterskipodcast.com/flowpointmethod. Again, thewaterskipodcast.com/flowpointmethod. Or you can click in the link in the show notes. You'll be able to try the program out for 3 days, see if it's for you. I think it is. And then decide after that what kind of membership you want to get. Also, before we jump in the interview, I just wanted to remind you about the WaterSki Bits. So the WaterSki Bits is another podcast that I've opened not too long ago, where I'm uploading excerpts from the WaterSki Podcast interviews. They call them microcasts. So essentially anywhere between 5 to 12, 13 minutes episodes with one of our guests really keying in on one aspect either of their experience or some of their opinions. I've recently published a conversation I had with Vincent Stadelbauer about the promotion of water skiing. So I invite you to look up the WaterSki Bits on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast, etc. Subscribe, tell your friends, leave a review. It's a very good, quick, kind of like before a set audio that I hope you will enjoy. With that said, let's jump into Trent's interview, the second part. Trent here covers quite a bit of things, more recent things. We essentially started where we left off in the first part, so his transition from Louisiana to Texas, the early days in the Pro Tour, back when there was still a Pro Tour, his days as writer and then associate editor, and for a brief time chief editor of the WaterSki Magazine. We speak about the shift between 36 miles per hour to 34 or 58K to 55, and how his skiing has developed through that transition and his coaching has developed, or shall I say, get a little bit more intense maybe after the shift. Trent talks about joining his athletes at the Pan Am Championship and how that experience was super cool because he was able to, share the same dock as his athletes being there. A big difference compared to what he had experienced previously. And then we finish off with talking about Spraymakers, the podcast then Chris Rossi and he co-host. So yeah, enough with the intro. Let's jump into the interview. See you next week. Well, Trent, it took a few weeks, but here we are back in front of the mics, this time on the other side of the world.
Yes.
Thanks for coming back.
No sweat at all. We you changed continents, but it's still the same deal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the background might be a little different, but still here, still in front of microphones, still talking about water skiing. So last time we left, I guess we really covered your days at UL.
Yeah.
And, your journey there with the ups and downs or downs and ups, should I say. And after that, what happened? Where did you move from Louisiana? What happened in your skiing journey after that?
Well, I was still dabbling a little bit, going back and forth to Florida. Just, I had just, really good friends there, Thomas Moore and Billy Susie. And then, I had opportunity. I was skiing with Wade Cox, and those were some of the last years of his professional career. So I was still going down there a lot. As soon as I was done, as soon as I graduated, I went down and sort of fulfilled this stated goal I had as a kid, and maybe I was just trying to get my mom off my back with what are you going to do when you grow up kind of thing.
Right.
But I remember telling her, I was probably 13 or 14. I just told her I was going to write for WaterSki Magazine one day, and it was just maybe it was kind of an off the cuff comment, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know, but it was I had stated that as a kid. So anyway, as soon as I graduated, I went down. I made an appointment with Todd Risterselli, was the longtime editor. And I remember nervous, walked into the office, thinking this is a thing. This is it. This is my chance. And it was I walked in with a book of ideas and a laptop full of stuff I had written and in the course of 10 minutes, I had a job.
But
so
tell me, that's pretty dope, man. Tell me, because you said you were nervous, and obviously by then you had done quite a few tournaments, water ski tournaments.
Yeah.
Compare to me the nervousness of, showing up on the dock, having to ski, that kind of nervousness, versus getting into the office, meeting Todd, wanting to write for the mag, nervous.
It was probably really similar because both I felt out of place. You know what I mean. So it was it was similar, but I just in hindsight I'm like, well, that wasn't even a thing. That was just I probably could have called him and he would have given me a job. But there was this process, this weight in my mind that it had to work, and it was like I don't even think he wanted. I don't even think he looked at what I had brought. I think he just said, yeah, we'll give it a shot. Here, I'll send you some assignments and we'll see if it works, and writing had been my thing, it's not what I studied, but it was what I was good at. I had a humanities class, partway through, and I remember it was Dr. Christine Devine was the professor's name. And she was a PhD in English.
Right.
And I remember she had pulled me aside, halfway through the year, and she just said, you have a talent for this. You're an incredible writer. Because humanities is a lot of papers, it's a lot of research, and it's a lot of writing. And she said, I think you should switch your major to English. And not really understanding her background, I kind of scoffed a little bit. Thanks, but what the hell would I do with an English degree? And that's when she's like, Trent, I have a PhD in English, and I'm like, oh shit, sorry. But and it was something she reminded me of a few times over the course of the semester, and it was anyway, it kind of, in hindsight, I'm like, probably should have listened. That that might have really helped. But yeah, anyway, yeah. So I went down. I asked for this job. Throughout college, though, I had been coming over to Central Texas. I had been coaching Dakota Peterson. He was during his junior time, he was one of the best junior skiers in the world. Masters, Junior Worlds, national teams, and I just formed this relationship with his family. His dad Sonny and her stepdad Sonny and his mom Eileen, and I just have been skiing and training there. And as soon as I graduated, Sonny buried. And if anyone knows Sonny, he's just he's got an incredible heart, and he really roots for the underdog, if you will. So as soon as I graduated, he said, "What are you doing in Florida? Florida sucks. Obviously, Florida sucks. Move to Texas." And that's just Sonny. So I did. I moved here as quickly as I could.
Out of Lafayette.
Well, yeah. So briefly to Florida, and then by that fall, I moved to Texas. So I've been here since 2005. Then I'd return in the spring to Florida to ski with my guys down there, Thomas and Billy.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been my home since not long after I graduated.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of remembered, right? Because I remember, and honestly, I don't care what people will think about this, but I remember having conversations with you early on where we both kind of agreed that for whatever reason, Florida wasn't really our vibe. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yes. No, and it is. I've never felt comfortable there, and I don't. I kind of attribute it to my trips to ski school as a kid, which I just didn't really enjoy, and not any fault of the ski schools I was at. It just that I didn't really enjoy being there, and it's almost like this kind of PTSD kind of thing. I fly into Orlando and I'm like checking my ticket about when I'm leaving, and that's I've got family there, friends there. I love a lot of people there, but it's just I've never felt comfortable there. I've never felt further from home than when I was there. And as soon as I started coming over to Central Texas, this place reminded me of home. It reminded me of Canada a lot. The people.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's funny you say PTSD because before I moved to the US, the only experience I had in Florida was a Junior World Championships that, due to the classic hurricane season, it had to be cut in a day and a half. Dude, we did Junior Worlds at Jack's on 2 lakes in a day and a half, and then everyone ran away for the hurricane.
No.
So maybe I had a little bit of that as well. But yeah, no, Ed, obviously you're in a great place. I had a chance to come there a few times through college and then come to see you. Well, you sort of mentioned in passing that, excuse me, that you were skiing with Wade.
Yes.
Give me a sense, or give the listeners a sense of what it is to ski with Wade, because that's a peculiar experience, I would say.
It's everything you think it should be. He's a legend, right? So,
right.
So when I, we kind of talked about this last week, but when I left Australia, when Ray had just said, now it's time, right? Like you've got to go to Florida. That's where the tournaments are. That's where everything's happening. Love you, but you got to go, kind of thing, which was cool. So when I went down there, I started skiing with Carl Roberge immediately. There was a connection. My older brother had skied with him a little bit. I showed up and it was kind of the same thing. By the time I left that afternoon, I had a job. I could drive and I was already coaching a little bit. Anyway, and then when Carl sold his property to Wade, it was like all of a sudden, holy shit, I'm like Wade Cox's training partner. And it just sort of happened. And it was towards the end of his career, and I probably didn't learn. It wasn't about the nuts and bolts, and that really wasn't. Wade is a coach now, and a great coach. Back then, that really wasn't his deal. But what I did learn was, maybe just the process. Just watching him ski and the type of confidence he had, and just so cool. He would just He would just show up. Yeah, so I was at a boat show with him this winter, and I reminded him of this. So his last season, and decidedly it was his last. He knew it was his last. He said it was his last. So leading up to Masters, which is a spring tournament, for some reason there was the boat that he had. There was something like wrong with it. He was between boats, so the dealer just sent him some really high hour boat. But it would not go 36 miles an hour. And that's not one of those kind of revisionist kind of history kind of things. Like, the story's not getting better with age. The boat wouldn't go 36. Wow. And so every once in a while we'd go over to Ronnie's, but which is a treat. It's just around the corner, but it's an amazing lake and everything's always perfect. So I was thinking, heck yes, we're going to be basically skiing at Ronnie's all spring because Coxie's got Masters to get ready for. We went over there like twice. The rest of the time he skied on a boat that wouldn't go 36. It just was what it was. This thing is vibrating, shaking, and Wade's just out there, skiing. He was already having hip trouble, so he was skiing 2 or 3 sets a week. Wasn't a big deal. And the day before we left, we went over to Ronnie's and he skied and whatever. But I mean, he's so barely skiing and skiing on a boat that wouldn't go the right speed. He went and he corrected me. I think I said second, and he actually got third, or I said third and he got second. Anyway, he podiumed at his last Masters. And that was his exit. Like, here, done, got it. Thanks, you guys. And that was just like, I was like, wow, man. Like that's just like trusting in your experience, trusting in your abilities. He wasn't sweating it at all. And maybe, younger, when he was younger in his career, in his earlier days, that I'm sure he wouldn't have taken that approach. But given, he just trusted, his tens of thousands of sets he had already had, and he just strolled into Masters and hit a podium. Like, it's just, so that stuck with me with me forever. And it, one, just because it's so cool, and two, you can learn a lot from that,
Yeah, of course. And when I interviewed Wade, he spoke of those last 2 or 3 years. I believe he was on the mic with him. Yeah. He spoke about how, he has some physical issues. He said hip, right? I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And so he had to be extremely purposeful with his skiing and couldn't train too much. Mm-mm. And whatever training he was doing, people thought it was a little weird. Like, he spoke a lot of the cut and coast exercise that he would do just to maintain feel through the wakes with the boat, with the line. And I guess just crossing path with a legend like him at a time where he knows he's towards the end, but over the years of experience, he's not even skiing. It's just the process, the amount of sets, the mental side, the physical side, must have been an exciting time.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah. I mean, I'm out there getting, to ski with him when he is there. And then really getting to, he trusted me with his students, because I mean, again, he really wasn't coaching that much then, he was still a full-time skier. So when he wasn't skiing, he was on his bike and at therapy and all this stuff. So I mean, I got a heck of a lot of coaching time in those couple of years. It was cool. Yeah. I mean, it was like, I was coaching Billy Susie, because Billy was one of Carl Roberge's guys. And then obviously transitioned onto Coxie, and like Jonathan Bond and just, it was, I learned a lot, and just, and developed a lifelong friendship. I see Wade at, a handful of times a year all over the country. And it's cool. It was that here's a guy that, growing up, I was a Coxie guy. Like, so if you're looking at, Maple, Coxie,
right.
I related better to Coxie. I thought he was this crazy cool. It was like, I was a Wade Cox guy. I was a Chris Sullivan guy. These are the guys that I wanted to emulate. And then just end up all of a sudden, now we're buddies. It's like, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, I was on the same in the divide. I was on that side too. I mean, obviously you can't, you couldn't deny Andy and what was he was achieving. It was just like, but I was on that. Like, I could relate more to that for whatever reason.
Yeah, and it was just cool. I was just like, man, this is what slalom is supposed to be like. I'm just like this, those guys. It was me at first Coxie, and then Chris Sullivan, Rossi and Beauchesne. I was just like, whoa, like this is what I hoped it was going to be like,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and in those years, what in terms of competitive skiing, were you skiing some pro tournaments already? What was the transition there?
Yeah, I mean, I was. Actually, I think I skied my first pro event in 2000.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I skied. My first one ever would have been in Abbotsford, Canada. And I qualified sort of last minute. That was like when there was people misuse the term the tour. Like there was a pro tour back then. There was a consolidated pro tour.
Yeah.
So I qualified last minute at a tournament in Shalom Park, Canada. Vern Oberg is just great friend, great supporter of my skiing and Canadian skiing as a whole, especially Western Canadian skiing. He's he had hosted a tournament at Ken Nelson's place in Edmonton, and he bet me my entry fee because I told him, I said I'm gonna try and qualify today. And typical Vern, he's like, you don't have a chance in hell. Like that's not that he meant it, but he's like, but if you do, I'm gonna pay your entry fee. And sure enough, I did. And then so my dad took me out to Vancouver, and he watched me ski my first pro event.
How did that go?
I couldn't even tell you. No recollection.
You don't remember?
Zero.
No recollection.
Zero.
What?
The only thing I remember is when I was done, a club up in Whistler, they drove me up to Whistler and I coached there for 2 days. That's the only thing I remember about that trip. I couldn't tell you if I ran my opener or not.
Huh.
I know.
Interesting.
Anticlimactic, but I have zero recollection of that one. I do recall my second one, which was the next year in Orlando. I remember being on the starting dock, and there was a runoff. There was 4 spots, and 5 of us tied.
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember who all. I don't know. I was on the bubble. I know Billy was on the bubble, and I know Lucky Lowe was on the bubble. So this would have been absolutely the end of his career.
Yeah.
And I remember I was just like a kid, and I remember I was on the dock before the runoff, and this was just to get out of the prelims, right? So this is just to get to the semis, not to the finals. And I remember I'm walking through the moves I wanted to make, or whatever it was that I was doing. I was, trying to visualize a little bit. And I just remember Lucky along the lines of, well, that shit ain't going to work out there, buddy. And I'm like, you're tough talking a rookie? Like what the hell? But anyway, I know myself and Billy made it through that cut. I don't remember where Lucky ended up, and that was a tournament. So that was a tournament that super special tournament to me. Also, I obviously didn't make the finals, but
well, I mean, why obviously?
Yeah. Well, anyway, I did not make the finals, but
right.
But it was special in that that was the one that Mapple and Coxey went head to head. The re-ride. That one at 41, two at 41, one at 41, two at 41. Yeah, until Mapple knocked himself out. And my memory tells me Coxey won, but I think that's how it went.
Yeah. Coxey won, I think, at the 4th or 5th round, like a runoff.
And Mapple went out the front, headed to 2-ball, and literally knocked himself unconscious. And then memory tells me also that I think that's the one Sully got 3rd.
See, I don't know about that because I've seen that video on Wade's Hall of Fame video presentation, and they show the 4 or 5 runoffs that they did, and then I know that was kind of like Chris Sullivan's sort of coming out weekend, unless it was the very next year. But anyway, yes, that was that tournament, and so my biggest recollection of that event was obviously watching that runoff and watching Chris Sullivan ski so amazing. 2, my interaction with Lucky Lowe on the dock. and then 3, I was like, and this one sticks with me too. It's kind of embarrassing now, but I was just so in awe of everybody. So I knew Curtis Shears because he and I skied together at Ray Stokes in Australia. So I remember
trying to be a guy, like maybe just kind of gravitating towards Curtis because at least he knows me and we're kind of friends. And I remember like Scott Ellis walks up to me and I'm just like, okay, don't blow this, excuse me. Sorry. Don't blow this. And he's like, hey, I really like your tattoos. And I was like, and this happened. I was so nervous, dude. I remember I looked at him and like nothing came out. I didn't say anything, not a word.
Wow.
And so I was too nervous, man. But now I'm like, God, he must have thought I was such a jerk, like, or like a bad attitude person or something. But as much as I tried, I could not respond. I couldn't get my brain to operate. I was just, because again, these are just magazine guys, These
exactly.
These aren't my, they're not my friends. These aren't my equals. It's just like, whew.
They're on the magazine.
Yeah.
And at the time, you weren't writing for the magazine yet, right?
Nope. No,
Yeah.
that would have came in like more like 05, 06.
Right. So yeah, well,
if this is not 2001.
If this is not a demonstration that, you really wanted to write for the magazine and what you told your mom had some kind of sense and backing, I don't know what that would be, And it's funny that transition moment, because you as a general, not just you, Trent, but like when you show up to a pro tournament, you are out of place the first time or two, you're, even if you're there and, rightfully so. I mean, first of all, to qualify for a pro tournament, you're a great skier, period. I don't care if you get dead last. But then the first few tournaments, you feel a little bit out of place. Like the people are there that have done it, they've done 40 or even just 5. They already look a little bit more comfortable than you feel, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think that process eventually has to start somewhere,
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are, but like I think eventually if you have the scores and you qualify, you go.
Yeah. I mean, I probably never really felt that comfortable though, I'm
Not even
trying to
after
think
a
of
few ones?
I don't think so. Like I'm just trying to think of when I felt like I think I pretended to feel comfortable, and I think that got in the way, I was lacking like that authenticity that comes from confidence, but also I think it's the inverse also, like that authenticity can be confidence inspiring, I think I was always trying to pretend that I wasn't nervous, trying to pretend that, and I would have done a lot better just like I do now, just being like absolutely nervous. And that's right. Okay. You know what I mean? But I never figured that out, which is fine. I mean, because I did far more than I had intended. And in hindsight, I did far better than I felt like I was doing at the time, But yeah, I'm trying to think when I felt comfortable. I had lots of friends, but I still always kind of felt like just like not even an outsider, but just not on that level, And we talked a little bit about this earlier. There was collegiate nationals in 2004. That's when I was like, okay, I kind of belong here. But even moving forward, it was like I never had that, like someone like Thomas Moore found it in 2009, I believe, at the U.S. Open, whenever that Disney U.S. Open was, and the guys I were skiing with found it. Billy found it, French Masters, Malibu Open in Wisconsin, but I never had that kind of ease in trusting my abilities,
Yeah,
and I don't know what I would have needed to have done. Like didn't matter what I did. Even when I was skiing my best, I look back, at old ranking lists the other day and like 2015 or something. I was like 6th in the world, and I look at it now and I'm like, holy crap, But at the time, it didn't register. It didn't mean anything,
But it's
weird.
I wanna try maybe to untangle that with you, because in a way, I remember on part 1 you told me that after that knee injury, you started to treat water skiing as the best, to your understanding, as an Olympic athlete would treat his sport, right?
Yes.
So you're training, everything is in functional water skiing. in order to improve. But it sounded like as you were improving, you weren't either seeing it or you didn't care, or something was happening where probably you weren't in touch with that.
Yeah, and it wasn't like I was neglecting it. I mean, I couldn't read enough, in terms of sports psychology, and I was just trying to digest everything I could. But it was, in hindsight, it was that lacking that authenticity. I wasn't letting myself be myself. I was trying to force it, I was trying to stuff in it. Like, I think back to, like '09 Worlds in Calgary, the last 2 weeks, the month before I wasn't skiing that good, but I was there with Thomas Moore, and he helped, like he has countless times. He helped me just relax and just do what I do best. And the 2 weeks leading up to it, I 100% was skiing good enough to win. I just fell into this groove where there was zero chance I wasn't going to get 3 at 41 every set. Those, the last 2 weeks, and then that was enough. And it just, and then I look back to, the morning, of the prelims or qualifying, and it was just like, I don't even know who that guy was. I was like just trying to stuff myself into this box that I thought I was supposed to be in. Like that kind of, like, I ski my best when I'm just relaxed, when I'm just, kind of detached from the outcome, and just, I'm pretty carefree with it. But I just would go into this mode where I'm like, music on, mean mug, I'm like, I the tiger kind of guy, and I'm like, well, that's not even me. I figured it out. I don't want to say too late, because I figured it out, and some people never figure it out, so that's okay. But in hindsight, it's just so obvious what I was doing wrong, and I don't know if you can even teach that. I'm trying.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's like to avoid having to use hindsight, right? You have to try and develop awareness in the moment, like as you are going through those things. And oftentimes it's tough to do it on your own. That's really what it is. I mean, as a sports psychology person, I can tell you that a lot of what I find myself doing with athletes is just to remind them what they have already known all along, but they just either weren't able to see it or they've forgotten it for whatever reason. I'm just helping them, gain that. But it's interesting that you never really felt comfortable then. Do you feel comfortable now?
In certain settings, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Even competitive settings?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, 100%. It's easy now.
Interesting.
But still same things, but in certain settings. So, but I mean, I go to like radar photo shoot, and I'm like nervous again.
Okay.
It's like, oh my God, it's like Corey Vaughn and like Rossi watching me, and I get all nervous, but now I recognize it, and I think it's just kind of funny, and it just kind of is what it is. It doesn't stress me out. But no, I'm 100%. Even because now it's all in the past, so it's behind me, and like now when I look at what I've done and what I've achieved, now I'm proud of it. But at the time, I wasn't, and I don't know. Maybe it was never going to be enough, but it wasn't that productive. Never enough. It was just that kind of, Not that I wasn't able to celebrate small victories. That wasn't even the problem. It was just I was just oblivious to where I was in the whole thing, and it definitely limited my potential results. And Marcus told me that a couple of years ago too. He's just like, he's like, he said you were always way better than what your results were showing us, and that meant a lot to me. Yeah.
No, that's, and from someone like him, that's pretty impactful, I would say, because he doesn't he doesn't screw around, like he says it how it is. At least that's my experience of Marcus.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, listen, because I want to talk about your experience with WaterSki Mag, I'd be interested to stay with this line of comfort. So, you meet Todd, he says, okay, you might have over-prepared for the meeting, as you said, but then you get the job.
Yeah.
How was your comfort then? Because then, again, I guess like in skiing, you were given an opportunity that you were, seeking, and now you're in it. How was the, first days at the mag?
No, that was fine. I mean, I never felt like I wasn't, like I was ill prepared. I knew my skill set, and I'm really proud of some of the stuff that I produced over the years. Like really proud of some of it. It's a consumer magazine, so like let's just keep it in perspective. But there was just the odd article that came out that was like, man, I could not be prouder of that. So I mean, it was Todd gave me an amazing opportunity, and I hope I've done a good enough job thanking him, because I mean I was there for a long time. I went from just contributing writer for years to editor at large, assistant editor for probably 6 or 7 years, and then rounded out, the final year of the magazine as editor. Yeah. So it was amazing, and it was when it was time for the magazine to go away. It was almost a relief though, because it was just the writing was on the wall. Like people stopped buying magazines years before ours went away. Because we had such a loyal readership that. If there was a magazine that was going to stick, it was going to be ours, because, it was the only option, and just, skiers are, right? They're incredibly loyal, they're incredibly dedicated. So, I mean, our readership was similar. But it was just a sign of the times, right? It's no one wants to read about what happened 2 months ago.
Yeah, no, of course. Like the speed of news. Yeah. Did you, because I remember, obviously I was a huge consumer of the mag even here in Italy. And I remember a lot of like the technical side of your writing. Like you would write a lot, kind of almost like in writing what you're probably now doing with Spraymakers in a sense, although the format is completely different. Did you do any interviews?
A lot. Yeah.
Okay. Give me the first interview. Interview.
Easy. Easy. So this is when I was a contributor, and this was at probably the first year, Nick Parsons.
No way. Yep. I want to hear the story. Do you remember anything about it?
Oh, 100%. It like, and again, I was confident in what I was doing at the magazine, but I was nervous to call this guy, because I mean, I didn't know who he was, and I just knew he was, he was the guy. Like when Nick broke out, like I couldn't even guess how old he was. I mean, he was young, early into his 20s, but I mean, there was like just such a buzz about him. He was. That was before he was riding the mid rides and the wide rides and all that stuff. But it was just, he was it was a far less awkward and quirky exchange than you would have imagined. Because if you know Parsons, I mean, one of my closest friends, the guy is super quirky.
He's out there.
Yeah, he's just. I mean, he's a thinker, and he's got no filter. So just whatever he's thinking comes out. But in hindsight, he was probably nervous, because he was the young kid, like, and we've talked about it, and it was like, he was so excited and so honored, and curiously, he was questioning whether he was deserved of the honor of having a profile, an interview on him in the magazine. So it was just like, the roles were kind of flipped in that regard, Yeah. I was making him nervous. But I mean, I think it might have been the first thing I ever wrote for publication.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What was your experience like? Were you trying to edit it to be perfect? Like, what was I'm talking about you as the writer.
Yeah, I developed a voice really quickly, and like any working relationship, like we were often adversarial, Todd and I. But I think it was in the end, for the greater good of the magazine, you know, I wanted to do more human pieces, and Todd, granted, you know, with his experience, he was there a long time, man, and you know, most people, I don't know how long he was editor, but I mean, it had to have been 15 years, so he knew what he was doing. Anyway, Todd always wanted an instructional component, so we kind of met in the middle. Like he'd let me write my what I felt were more human pieces, but there was always an instructional sidebar. So I was getting to write both. So, you know, I thank him for that, because I mean, I learned a lot. I mean, I learned a lot through the whole process, but yeah, it was just my interest was always, I was such a fan of these people that I wanted, you know, I wanted to be able to, the readers to be able to meet them, to get to know them, you know, and interesting things about them that they didn't know, and see the human side of them. So, yeah, I did one on Ryan Dodd through the years that I was really proud of. And then, you know, I did one on Will Asher that I was very proud of. There's just thinking back, you know, there was just a few different issues that I keep for that reason. Yeah. It's funny though, like when I started, I wasn't needing to produce that much, but when I got that job, so after I got the job, I quickly moved back up to Texas. So I didn't work from the office. I'd been in the office maybe three times in my life, but I mean, I would spend 6 hours a day writing. You know, I'd get up, I'd ski, I'd go, and then I would go into either the library or the coffee shop, and then that was my work day. I'd be there all day. You know?
Interesting. I mean, knowing you, and even just the readers who were reading your material, I'm not surprised. You know.
It was interesting though. Like as the years sort of went on, and I was producing more and more of each issue, I was actually could do it in far less time. But those first couple of years, it was just I just did it like a 5-day a week kind of gig. You get up, ski, go write, go to the gym, go back and write, grab some lunch, write some more, go home and ski. You know, and it was. And I'm looking back, I'm like, well, you weren't really making very much money, and you know, like, but that was that was the way I did. I just didn't know any other way to do it. The funny thing was even when I was like, even when I had been an assistant editor for like 5-6 years, you would be amazed how common the question I'd get from people when I'm doing clinics, like, hey, we love your writing, we love your writing, and that always meant a lot to me. But I'd always get the comment or the question, like, do they pay you for that, or is that you just do that? I'm like, well, I mean, I'm like assistant editor, man. It's international publication. Of course, I get paid for it.
Yeah, open the first page.
I get that question all the time.
Yeah, yeah, no, of course. But I think you tap into something when you said that you wanted to give the human side of the story, and I think just what I found to be resonating with a lot of people with this podcast is the fact that they feel like they're in the room with us. You know, they almost get to be participants of a conversation you and I might have at a pub there in Austin, and they just love it. Yeah. I think that's, if you think about conversations, that's the best way to know people. They just get to, get a little ear in and listen to the person, and it's interesting that way. But then I also see the importance of instructions. I mean, this sport is so fascinating and complicated, and if you can find ways to digest information or instructionals, as you said, that also has room, in the attention span. So I can see how the synergy of you and Todd brought both and kept the magazine being successful because. It was successful. Yeah,
I mean, it was, and I'm really proud of what we did. And even just our personalities were so different. So much of his stuff had this tongue-in-cheek kind of funny, So, but left to my own devices, that thing, would have been a far different book, and I know it wouldn't have been as successful, because. You know, maybe I would take it too serious. Maybe he would be too funny. So somewhere in the middle, like there was a lot of really good issues.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I'm assuming. Actually, I know the answer to this, but did you make the cover of the mag?
I did. Yeah.
What was that experience?
I can't remember what year, but I mean, that was crazy, you know, because that's one of those things, you know, because my dad was getting that magazine well before water skiing was really a thing for us, right? You know, my dad just liked to rip around on the lake, so he was getting WaterSki Magazine. So I mean, I'm thinking that probably goes to late 70s when my dad was getting it. So yeah, it was really, really cool. No, I don't have it framed anywhere. I don't even know if I have a copy of it, but I mean, I remember the photo, I remember the ski, I remember the day, and I remember when it was like the first time I saw it, I was like blown away, you know, because that's one of those things. That's one of those things is you know, there's, you know, win a Worlds, you know, win a Masters, win Moomba, get on the cover of the magazine, and that's what's so weird about the magazine being gone, because it was so important. And you know, and going way back to 13-year-old or 14-year-old Trent, without that magazine, right? I mean, this whole thing wouldn't have got set in motion. You know, I want to write for the magazine one day. Like that's that's the only troubling part. And like, you know, obviously, there's nothing wrong with, you know, social media, Instagram. I get it, but it doesn't change lives. Like, you know, not like that.
No, not at all. And
so I don't know what's going to replace it. You know,
I think it's such a unique medium. You know, like it's unique for the readers, because yes, you're gonna read about Moomba 2 months after it happens. So what? You know, like you're holding a physical thing, right? That you're flipping through, and then it stays, right? It's a piece of material that you have on the shelf that you can go back, right?
Yep.
It's physical. It's a different thing. And I think for us, maybe you could give some better context to the whole idea of the importance of being on the cover for a skier, which I know firsthand because I've never made it. So, you know, but also how how it's just not about you. And I think Thomas Gustafsson spoke at length about it, because it also depends on, you know, whether the photograph is good, whether, you know, it's the 100%. Best of that issue. You know, like there's so many variables that converge into you making it on the magazine, you know?
Yeah. And the way, you know, yes, variables. So, I mean, one is even something as simple as and this will be distasteful for some people, but it always bothered me that people found it distasteful. But even like, what ski is he riding? We got this amazing photo, but he's riding brand X, and brand X has already had 2 covers this year. We can't do that. We've got to go brand Y, you know? And and I never understood why that bothered people. I'm like, how is that not a part of the process? I mean, of course, it's basically a free advertisement on, you know, in you know, on the highest stage. So of course there's got to be some balance among, you know, where you're going to put someone on there rarely will you put someone on there who's riding a ski who didn't advertise or wouldn't advertise, you know, just, I mean, that's, of course that's part of the process, but what ski you're riding, and then just, you know, you're, you know, everything from the you know, the light has to be perfect, the gear you're wearing, you know, because like you said, it's going to be there forever. So I mean, everything had to fall into place for all of those covers. I mean, Chris Rossi has had, like, I'm going to say 5 covers.
Wow.
And if I'm wrong, I'm only off by 1. You know.
Yeah.
And but it was that he was the it guy for so long. Plus, you know, he's so easy to get photos of, not pretending to be a photographer, but in that, I mean, he's going to look the same every single time. It's going to look amazing, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, no, getting that cover was huge. That was like kind of it was such a thing, and like, you know, just for my parents to see it, and every once in a while it'll pop up, you know, on a social media platform, and it was like, oh, it's really cool. Yeah,
I made it on the cover.
It was such a thing.
Give us a description of the shot, the day that the shot was taken, who took the shot.
So it was Thomas Gustafson, and him and I have just had a lot of success together over the years. I've had some really good spreads in the magazine and some really good photos and obviously that cover. So it was it was shot actually at the boarding school on the back lake, and it was a gate shot, and it wasn't long after I had really started to figure out my gates, and that same day later that day they'd shot an instructional sequence for the USA WaterSki newsletter. So I can those photos pop up also where I'm wearing the exact same gear. But I was riding I was riding a Radar, but it was a early season prototype. So it was a white topped ski with Radar stickers on it because it was shot early spring. I mean, I just remember everything. My shorts were really long because that was just kind of the thing. But yeah, it was, Thomas was swimming, floating, just sort of inside my gate turn in about, probably at about the whitewash. So I was about a little over a third of the way back into the wake. So it's just an offside. I'm just falling into my max lean and,
wow.
Yeah.
Do you see the boat in the shot?
No. So
you.
he's shooting. So he would be shooting like away from the boat. So he's, so I've pulled up, I've turned on my gates, and then as I'm swinging through, so where is he? So he was shooting back. So the rope is kind of would have been over his head, shooting back at me.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So I guess I didn't turn around him. Everything would have taken place before him.
Before him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
I mean, it's cool. Yeah, it's not incredibly powerful. It's not that shot. It's just everything's perfect,
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes that the simplest shot is the best shot, right? Yeah. And was this like early days of Radar skis, or was the brand already, like, how many skis had you released so far?
Yeah, the brand was super well established. I'm guessing it would have been in 2009 because that's kind of when, that's kind of when I was sort of, coming of age a little bit in terms of, I was getting scores and I was doing okay at events, and so it was probably 2009.
Yeah, so
with Radar having started in
a few years,
06,
exactly.
We started, yeah.
Yeah, still early days. No, that's cool. A lot of things behind that shot, and then of course the emotion. Of going to Barnes and Noble and that there you are. I guess.
Yeah, I know, and that was it too. And that, my family, like my twin brother, I know he went to. It's called Chapters. Was the bookstore up north, and just buying them all. I was like, this is so cool. It's so cool. Yeah.
No, it's a shame. It's really a shame because I mean I know when the announcement came out, a lot of skiers of any level, from the world champion to the guy that just had the subscription for years, even after maybe they're not skiing anymore, but they still buy the magazine, because they want to keep up with everything.
But like I said, like when it sort of came, like we knew it was coming, so it really was. It was a relief because you put, especially that last year, I was working with Garrett Cortese. Todd had moved on already, and he was so incredibly passionate, and so together we were like, okay, we're like, it's not going to be here long. We're going to steer this ship. He had just come from the wake side of things. I think he might have been with Alliance magazine, wakeboard magazine. But he was he was a wakeboarder, but he grew up as a skier. His dad was a skier, and he wrote these amazing sort of editorials where he's talking about growing up skiing with his dad and wanting to be as good a skier as his dad was, and we just clicked on that level, and and actually we had the one more issue almost written, and when all those mass cuts came at Bonnier, and it wasn't WaterSki Magazine, you're gone. It was like, it was like 25 titles in one day. I mean, it was, apparently it was like, as in police officers came in while they were giving these people their notice that they were no longer employed, you know,
Wow.
just as a precaution, like, you know, so it was, you know, it was, I was never happier to have worked away from an office, you know.
Right.
I've never experienced that, but I mean, it sounded like it was heavy, you know, so it was, you know, it's just, and again, that's not like tell you, it's got nothing to do with water skiing. This is, you know, indicative, just, it's a societal shift, and it just is what it is.
No,
I don't know if
sure,
it'll ever come back. You know, I don't know. I mean, nothing ever seems to ever come back, but, you know, not on that level anyway. I mean, just monthly editorials, I don't think are ever going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know, maybe
I
it'll
think
be more of a collector's item or something.
yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think you remember the days not too many years ago where people were saying that newspapers will become useless or pointless, right?
Yeah.
And they never went away. They survived and sort of like readjusted themselves. And now I would argue, and a lot of people would argue, are more important than ever, right?
Yeah.
But they never died, right? As a medium. Whereas the magazine seems like, you know, as a general consumer item, is losing traction gradually, but certainly.
Big time, right? I mean, like, if you can even find a bookstore nowadays, I mean, have a look where you know, Barnes and Nobles would have had 10 rows of magazines. Now there's 2, you know, or just you travel through the airports, and same thing, right? I mean, now they have a dozen titles where they would have had 100 titles.
Yeah.
Not including the pornography. How is that a thing? Pornography in airports? I don't get it, but
I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, it's just
I don't know.
it's just
That's
shrunk.
a weird one.
It's a weird one, yeah, and it's universal
it's a weird
too.
one. Yeah, just in row
yeah.
27C, just flipping through, you know.
I don't get it. I'm like, who's buying this stuff? But anyway,
I don't know. Anyway, all right. So magazine, pro. Okay, there's 2 more things that I want to chat with you about. One is, well, you're above the age of 36, right?
43.
And 43, and you are skiing at 34 miles per hour,
Yes.
right? When did you start? But also, and I think we'll untangle this, why the shift?
So the first tournament I did, I was 41, and it just kind of happened like, so 20. Sorry, I got to get my years kind of figured out again. But 2013, okay, yeah, the 2013 Worlds, I was qualified. But I just had a bit of, what's that?
Chile Worlds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I was qualified. I had a bit of a nagging knee injury, and I just couldn't go. I just was skiing in pain. I was like, so I sat that one out. And then the 2015 Worlds, which was Mexico, and that is where I entered that tournament ranked 6th. You know, but it was the same thing. I just, you know, I was skiing in pain, and it just, I could have went. You know, I didn't go. So I mean, I just sat out. I sat out 2 Worlds in a row where I was qualified for, and so I just really wasn't skiing that much. I was only skiing a couple tournaments a year, and then I was 41, and it just kind of happened. It was I think it might have been one of John Horton's ball of spray tournaments, and he's just like, well, if you're gonna ever do it, you know, why don't you just do it at my tournament? And so I did, and it just. It was just fun just to have, you know, something to ski for again. You know, so then the opportunity came the next year to go to the Pan Ams, and I just, like I said, I hadn't represented Canada since 2011. So now it's that would have been 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So I hadn't represented Canada for 7 years, and you know, I hadn't skied any big events in a long time. And then what was so amazing about the Pan Ams, they were held in Chile, was there's the juniors, and then all the different senior teams. They all compete in one event. So, you know, I had probably 25 or 30 people at that tournament that I coach on some sort of a regular basis. you know, from Canada and from the U.S. So I mean, I was like, what? I mean, and that was something I've never been able to do as a coach was travel to a tournament, you know, with my skiers, you know, because I was skiing myself at the time, and so, you know, any of my kids that, you know, went to junior masters and stuff, it was just going wasn't an option. One, I needed to stay home and work, and, you know, and two, I was, you know, stay home and ski, but more so the former though.
Yeah.
So this was just this opportunity where I mean, I can go and impart what I had figured out towards the end of my career, like there's, you know, how to keep your stuff together on a starting dog, like, you know. So I had like these young kids, you know, like Andrew Boskis and, you know, Sean Evans and Sean and Evan Kraus, and then, you know, their father, you know, who I also get to coach, and you know, and like just guys, you know, guys in their 60s and 70s and these 15-year-old kids, and like just to go stand on the starting dock with them and just, you know, like just kind of help remind them of, you know, of the process that, you know, that you already won. I mean, this is the fun part. Chill out. You know, there's no place you'd rather be right now. The hard work's over. Just go out, fall into your process. You know, like just to be able to share what I was feeling or how I was preparing myself to ski the same day. You know, it was definitely, that was the highlight of my ski career was that Pan Am's.
No
sure.
way.
Yeah.
No
for
way.
sure. Because I mean, I skied very well, but it was just the whole picture, you know. I mean, I just so many people that I coach on a regular basis were there, and for a lot of them, you know, Jeff Lindsay, you know, that was like the height of their ski career at that point, you know. So for me, being able to feel like I was taking a step, not back, but a step aside, you know, this going into, like, I just, you know, into amateur rank, I had a healthy perspective on it. So then I could share that healthy perspective, you know?
Yeah. No, I can see.
It was just amazing. It was amazing.
I mean, I can see that because, like, you could either be skiing at a tournament with someone maybe you ski with, say for you would be Billy or Tom, you ski together, but at the end of the day, you're on the dock, you want to compete and do better.
Yep.
Or you could be coaching someone and go to the tournament with them in the role of the coach, but then you don't ski. Whereas there, you were sharing the exact same experience they were having because you had to perform, and you were also their coach.
So perfect. You said it perfect, and that was the word I was missing. I was able to share it, you know.
Yeah.
And it was like it taught me a lot as a coach too, you know. In like how critical that part can be, you know.
Oh, for sure.
Meaning that
for
on the
sure.
day, that stuff on the day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's huge, you know.
Big time.
So it was absolutely, that weekend was definitely what I'm proudest of to this point, you know.
You see, it's funny. Like now that you say that, and I mean, as you can imagine, with my professional and stuff, like I know how important it is the day of and what is being said and how to say it and the time to say it and all that. And I think the great coach really is good at that. There's just no way around that. You know, you could be a good coach, you could be understanding of slalom skiing or whatever event and help with the nitty-gritty. But I think the step further is that ability to make your athlete perform when they need to. Yeah. And for me, it was, I mean, obviously, you know her, Marina Mosti. So she coached the under-21 team in Italy for 1 year. And for a number of reasons, I never really got to do camps with her in Roccetto.
Yeah.
I just went to tournaments with her. But the way she was able to make me feel at ease and, you know, like ready on the day, on the dock, the line is tight, off you go. I mean, to me, the fact that she was able to do that with me and with the other skiers, that already makes her a very good coach, right?
For sure.
Even though I didn't experience the nitty-gritty, the technical, I didn't really experience that with her. But the fact that everyone was able to perform up to their potential on the day, well, there you go. Huge part.
Cole Grant, incredibly talented at that.
Ooh, Oh man!
So if you know
talk
Cole,
about someone who was born for that,
dude. So Cole Grant is he is part of WaterSki Canada. He's an amazing skier himself. He's done a lot of work with Matt Reaney. But so at that same tournament, at this Pan Americans, obviously it's Team Canada. I mean, Cole Grant is there, so, and I've never, just personalities just not meshing. I've never had that as a team member. I've never had anyone. I've never felt more comfortable with that role before. It's been, Team Canada's always had, we're storied for how how revered our coaches are, but it just never clicked with me, for some reason. Just whatever.
I had the same exact experience, man. Like you take your story and the prestige of the Italian water ski team, you mash them, same thing.
Yeah.
Great history, never felt comfortable.
Yeah, no, me neither. Every single Worlds I went to, Cole Grant is incredible at it. Like, and I don't. That's something you can't really teach. That's just a reflection of his personality.
Yeah, I need to get him on the podcast. Well, obviously, I crossed paths with Cole at a very particular moment, which is when he had just started at UL, and then he became the coach there, or the manager, helping out Ryan. And I was already seeing how, he also had a bit of like hockey coaching experience before then. So he understood that coaching is beyond move your hips, look at the gate.
For sure.
He understood.
And what was
that.
what was so cool is that, so at this Pan Am's in 2018, he was the team coach, So I mean, I was helping my people, but when it came time for me to ski, and I look at it now, and I'm like, I remind myself, okay, I coached him as a child, up in Canada, and then he would come here. He'd come here and live in a hotel for 2 weeks and ski, and then I took time to make sure and convey like how much I appreciated what he did for me that day, because I mean, obviously skiing is still very, very important to me. So coaching aside, I wanted to go there and ski well and win, and just tell him like how talented he is at this, it's cool.
Yeah,
Full
no,
circle.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, the fact that you coached him as a kid and now he was on the dock with you for your tournament at Worlds.
Yeah, and what's so cool though is he wasn't okay. Trent, he's he's Canadian record holder. Run 41, whatever. Like he's done this 1,000 times. No, he took time to make sure I had everything I needed. And he was not nervous to. You know what I mean? Like he didn't just stand back and twiddle his thumbs. Like he was there to help me. I was just blown away by it. I'd never experienced that before. I thought it was really cool.
No, for sure. And he has a very calming presence to him. I'm sure he works hard at it because it's not easy, but he has this kind of ability to make people feel at ease around him. Yeah. Which I think a coach, especially of an individual sport, needs to have. Whether it comes natural to them or they need to work on it, like the ability of making your athlete feel at ease around you is huge,
Yep, for sure.
So the reason why, circling back to, how we got here, the reason why I asked you about the 34 is that, as you know, there are some athletes out there that pro skiers, some better than others, some not as good as others, who are hesitant, reluctant, what have you, to make the shift. I'm just curious how was it for you? How has it been for you? I mean, besides the technical, it's not in terms of buoys, but in terms of mark some kind of step. I don't know.
Like yeah. I mean, I definitely when I was, I think probably like why. There was enough of a departure, like I said, I hadn't done an international event since 2011, and I was into my 40s, but no, I didn't. I get that, yeah. Like I didn't feel like I needed to apologize to anyone for doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because again, like when I started looking at it, it was going to round out, or it was really going to help facilitate, my coaching career. you know, and it was just another challenge, you know, it was another challenge. Like, okay, you know, a couple years away and a couple years older, and it was just, yeah, I don't know. I never, it was when it was, I'd been pressured to do it for a long time. And it was the wrong time, but when it was the right time, didn't even really feel like that big of a decision, you know.
Interesting.
I'd already, you know, I had the open men's Canadian record, had past tense, no longer have, but so then after
What is
a
the
few years
Canadian
off,
record now? 5?
5 it is, yeah. I had it at 4 with Drew Ross and then Stephen Neville hopped on that too. Jason McClintock now has it at 5.
Okay. Oh yeah, there was a bunch of you guys tied at 4. That's right.
Yeah, me.
That's right.
It was Drew first, and then I tied Drew. In
And
2014.
Jason tied you.
Then Jason tied me, and then I think Neville got on there also.
Yeah.
And then Jason went to 5.
5. Yeah. Okay.
I got that record in. I was in at Corey Pico's place, Santa Rosa Beach.
Yeah, no, I remember that. I remember you had it. So, yeah, that's interesting. You know what you said. You know, whenever the time was right, it wasn't even.
Yeah, and it was. And I'm just, you know, I'm like, I wanted to be back in tournaments. I wanted to be on the starting dock, and then, you know, all these international opportunities sort of came up, and I'm like, yeah, absolutely, because I just had this feeling like these are my people, right? Like these are my students. They're my friends. Why wouldn't I go? You know.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
It's been good. I mean, I've done two Pan Americans, and I did the Senior Worlds.
Yeah, that you won, by the way.
Yeah.
You're world champ.
And like when someone says that now, I have to laugh a little bit because you default as I'm still going to default as in, well, I'm not really a world champ, but no, absolutely, yes, world champion. You got it. But when, you know, like like Freddie and Lori Kruger's mom, you know, they're like, when I saw her shortly after, she's just like, big hug. She's like, "You're a world champion. I'm so proud of you." And I'm just like, you know, I try to laugh it off. And I'm like, no, you know what? It's okay. I can embrace that. I should embrace that.
For sure. You should.
Yeah.
You really should. So let's go in the nitty gritty. Have you run 41 in tournament at 34?
No, I haven't. I've run like a whole bunch of 5s. I just haven't. I haven't. The last 2 years, I just haven't really made. I've really only skied events. Since I slowed down, I haven't really gone to a lot of record tournaments to try. You know, like last year I skied the Pan Ams, and I only skied one other tournament leading up to that. So maybe just like anything, you just need a couple of reps with the right opportunity. You know, driving's incredibly important.
At 41, yep.
At 41, yeah. So just putting myself creating the opportunity like I did in 2014 to get the open record. You know,
yeah.
It wasn't not going to happen. I just, I created the opportunities.
Interesting. Yeah. Is it a pass that you practice often? 41?
Every set.
Every set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, because like the last 2 years, so in 18, the Pan Ams were in November, the Senior Worlds were in December. So I really didn't start really skiing until August, September, you know?
Right.
But yeah, leading up to that tournament, I probably went 3 weeks without missing it.
Dude.
Yeah, I've really figured it out in 18 and in 19. Both those years I skied really well in practice. Nice.
Yeah. And what about the shorter one after that?
Yeah, I've never been past 2-ball. And that's what makes Nate. Yeah, Nate is incredible, or whoever, all those guys. I mean, I know Parrish has been down to the bottom end of it. I'm sure Will has too. I'm good for 2. I'll figure it out.
No, you figure it out.
It's just reps, but yeah, no, it was fun, and I never felt apologetic for doing it because I think had I gotten sort of big dog sites and going to the masters and stuff, I would feel apologetic for that.
Right.
I wouldn't be okay with that. But me going and representing my country in amateur sport, I'm like, heck yeah, why not? This is what I do.
That makes a lot of sense. Hey, listen,
I don't want to steal the spotlight. But I mean, I don't want to go to the U.S. Nationals and not that I have any problem with big dog. I think it is absolutely phenomenal, but I think it's something you should elevate to, not you shouldn't step down into it. If that's the height of your career, I've long loved that event. Like way back when it was a series. I would attend a lot of them because a lot of them had record tournaments sort of attached. So I mean, I got to watch those guys battle it out kind of in their heyday. When it was Chad Scott versus Ward McLean and now like with like dudes like Badal and Dave Miller. I mean, these guys are at the height of their career. I thought it was strange maybe when really high ranking professionals would step down into their league. I thought that really wasn't that cool, but that everyone has their own opinion on it, and it's not that big of a deal.
No, it's not. But you being someone who reached very high level skiing in F36 and made the jump, I just was very curious to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah. My back doesn't hurt.
That's
it's
also
really
good.
easy. It's really easy on your body.
That's really good.
I haven't torn a pair of gloves since I slowed down.
What? Gloves remain the same?
I know. Yeah. I mean, I'll get new ones, but I don't tear my gloves. I haven't had a ripped blister since I slowed down. I mean, I don't ski 15 sets a week, but I mean, I ski about as much as I used to.
Yeah. And
you're
going 41 and 43, so
it's just easy on your body. It's so much easier on your body. Yeah.
Now, a little final question about this before we shift. Obviously, you've been with Radar Skis, for a while. There was a break in there.
Yep.
But now that you're skiing at 34, are you? How can I say this? Do you feel that you could develop 34 specific equipment? Do you think the equipment you guys have is 34 and 36 alike? And this is not about Radar. It's about your experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what? Like I really didn't feel a need for any equipment change. I mean, I think 34 miles an hour, 28 off, 32 off. You can gain through a little bit of width for additional support, but in terms of line length to line length, slowing down, I'm running pretty much where I ever would have been, having tried different things also, wider skis, deeper fins, but no, I don't. I'm running the same setup I always would have, for sure. And even some of my guys that slow down to 32 and they age out, these guys are at 38 and 39 off. We're not really finding a huge equipment change.
That's interesting because and you nailed it. I would have guessed width profile, right?
Yeah.
Or concave depth, but no. Yeah, and it's curious to hear from you because you're going, 41 and 43. So like maybe equipment is a huge part in our sport. So like I can see maybe where the mind went there, but it's interesting that it circled back to what you would have used anyway.
Yep. I've ridden some wider stuff and but just at the shorter line length, you're still creating a heck of a lot of speed. Like, so I'm still getting support from the same setup.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just not having to fight the boat so much,
Yeah, no, I can understand that. I don't have the age to do it yet because I'm still having to ski at 36, but I could see how 34 would feel a little bit easier on the body.
Yeah.
Look, I just wanted to conclude with, since we're on a podcast, to talk about you and the podcast. So you're co-hosting Spraymakers with Rossi.
Yeah.
Give me a sense of where that idea came from. Because the reason why I say that is you ended up doing what maybe not, kind of like what Todd was asking you to do for the mag.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's
100%.
interesting. Yeah. How did that come about?
So and again, my platform disappeared, right? So, meaning the magazine, and then so for a long time, it was just trying to figure out another way of doing it, and I have a friend of mine in Canada that I coach a lot, Jeff Humphreys, and he is professionally he's an online marketing strategist, and he had long been telling me you need to do this podcast, but just this recurring theme, I just didn't think that I had a voice that definitely was going to command a consistent audience. But I'd been kicking it around already, and then just chatting with Brooks is just Brooks Wilson, brand manager at Radar, like he felt a need for it also, and why the avenue we went is back to Todd. He knew that people are hungry for kind of nuts and bolts kind of thing. One, and then two. I'm not gonna be able to do what you do. Like you've got this corner, this market cornered because you're really good at it, and so it was Rossi was on board, and it's been really good. It's and what's been best about it is I've gotten to develop a better relationship with a good friend of mine. Rossi and I now talk a couple hours a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Where typically we'd be texting about fin settings and maybe a ski that he's working on and what I'm feeling, but yeah, it would now it would help to nurture that relationship, and it's getting a lot of positive feedback, and it's it's kind of bridging that gap. A lot of the people I coach listen to it regularly, so it's just kind of either hearing my voice sort of between sessions or between clinics, from year to year. So I have a lot of people reach out, for clarification on something or. But yeah, it's just it's just the our current medium, I guess.
Yeah, I love it.
With print,
I've been listening to every episode, honestly, and I think what's cool is that it applies to the bottom of the base, Like I believe some episodes even you haven't never been in a slalom course, but if you've been in a slalom course once, you can listen to any of those episodes and relate to those and really get something out of them for your own skiing, which I think, with two guys that double with 41 and 43 to be able to get it to where everyone can take something out of that, it's remarkable. Like, as like if you and I were to start talking about skiing, like it could really go into some dark holes where maybe another one of a selected few of people that have tried 41 can understand, but then other skiers would just look at us like these guys are completely out of their minds. But the ability of the two of you to just like make it, I try to go down at 41 and I got some good stuff out of that, and I'm sure that someone who's trying to run 26 miles per hour got some great information out of that. That's pretty remarkable.
Oh, yeah, thank you, but and again, definitely therein lies the challenge. But so I'm just leaning on thousands of hours of doing just that. Like it's keeping that conversation relevant across, like you said, like across a broad range of abilities and really digestible. I think that's just leaning on a lot of coaching hours.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Although now it's not like what a lot of people maybe sometimes forget is in a coaching relationship, there's a bit of a power differential, right? And it's not a bad thing. Yeah. It's just like there's a coach and an athlete, and the coach is slightly above the athlete. So the conversations you have and you've had for all these years as coach come from that. Now you are on the same level as someone else with your experience, like similar experiences at a very high level, and you have to bring it down to where everyone can take something out of that. I don't know if this was intentional going in, but in my opinion, you guys have been very successful at that.
Yeah, I mean, well, 100% it was. Yeah, 100%. And like, that's why we're, I'm always careful, to sort of, to try and pull that person into maybe that person who is at 32 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour, or, because again, it's, keeping it relevant to a broader audience is definitely the most challenging part, but it's also helping me as a coach too, because even your guy at 38 off, it's easy to assume they know what you're talking about, and you can kind of brush over part of the process, and it's easy to jump ahead on somebody.
Yeah. Listen, I just one question, and I know you've been listening to this podcast. Structure is not really my favorite thing for this. Just one question came to mind because you went about coaching. If you could talk to Trent 10 years ago, who was already coaching a lot, what are some of the things you would maybe warn him against doing, or some advice you would give him?
You mean in terms of for performance?
To be a better coach.
Or to be a better coach?
Yeah, because it's been 10 years, right? You were already coaching then. You had been coaching for a while then.
Yeah.
But what are some of the things you would probably...
Trying to think what I do. I don't know what probably what do I do specifically better now? I feel like I'm evolving at a more rapid rate now than I was then.
Yeah.
In terms of like slaloms, as it specifically relates to slalom, like I feel in the last 5 years I've evolved far more than I had in the previous 5.
Yeah.
I feel like my approach has always been pretty good, and not going way back to when I first started. Not back in the 90s. I was doing clinics. Like more than 20 years ago.
Yeah, which is kind of why I think 10 years ago came to mind, because by then you'd already been coaching for a while, but it's also 10 years ago, so you have 10 extra years of experience in coaching and in skiing, which they feed off each other. But
yeah, I mean, I think what I've always done. I think what I've always done well is communicate in a manner that is specific to the individual. So I mean, I think I've always been good at that. I think I was, I've evolved. My approach has evolved a lot, and it's maybe I'm more open to new ideas, or maybe I'm working a little harder in the off season. I'm not really sure what it is. I've always been proud of the product, but I feel like I am prouder of the product right now, and maybe that's coaching a broader range of skiers, or maybe just what I've figured out in my own skiing in the last 5 years is helping me.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was going to be a process. So, I don't think I could have, as a coach, I don't think I could have gotten here any quicker. I put in the work, and I don't feel like rarely have I taken a set off. Like rarely do I feel like I don't want to say mailed it in, but I mean, I work really, really hard on every single set, and I always have. Even when I wasn't as good of a coach as I am now. And again, back to when I was a kid, I wasn't. I was working hard, but I didn't understand. Like how important it was and how much energy it took, but I don't think I couldn't have gotten here any quicker. I think I would have liked. I wish I could have helped myself as an athlete. I wish I knew now as an athlete what I knew 15 years ago. I wish I knew what I knew now.
Yeah.
I wish I could have been, a little more detached and a little more authentic, and just really, really enjoyed it like I really, really enjoy it now. Like when I go to these international events now, I'm literally the first person to the lake and the last one to leave.
That's cool.
I watch everyone. I watch everything. I don't miss a single one of my skiers ski. You know, and I started doing that when I started traveling to regionals here. That's when I started doing that. I'm like, I'm going to go and watch everything. I don't miss regionals because again, for like some of these kids, that's the peak of the season.
Yep.
You know, I go to nationals whenever I can now. But yeah, you know, I do wish I had found then what I have now, but that would have interfered with everything too, though, you know, so it just,
I think one of the importance of questions like making you, you know, if you could go back, what would you say to that Trent, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, oh, now I know this, so here's the knowledge, use it. But it's more so like, okay, what have I been so far? Like, you know, it's a past tense question to think about, more like progression towards today, right?
Yeah.
I think that certainly was elicited. Look, dude, I'm super stoked you decided to do this. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Super grateful. And I know you've had, you know, the whole cheesy thing we don't get here by ourselves, but it's certainly true. And I think you've done a very good job at honoring some of the people that were instrumental in your journey. Here's your shot to do some more of that. Anyone that you want to thank or give some shout outs to?
Well, I mean, and I just go through the timeline, you know, like, so obviously it was my parents first and always, you know, and then from there would have been like Jim Clooney was crazy important in this whole journey for me. Like there was when Team Canada first wanted to put me on the team in 2005, Jim like bought me a flight to Greece for the Caiaphas Pro.
Yeah.
The Caiaphas Cup. Because Team Canada wanted, you know, I was already on the team, but this is what they do, and it's been successful for them. But they said you need one more pro event before Worlds. So, I mean, I couldn't afford to go. So Jim bought me that ticket, and he made a comment that stuck with me forever. Like he said, he said you need to be, and it's just funny the way if you know Jim, but he said you need to be in effing Paris. And you can't afford an effing cheese sandwich, you know, but you're there and you're skiing, you know, like you need to just go ahead. You need to be broke. Don't worry about it. So he was crazy instrumental. And then Ray Stokes, I mean, this whole thing wouldn't have happened, you know, and we talked about this, like whatever made him say what he said and put this, you know, you will be one of the best skiers in the world one day. And that's to a 16-year-old kid running 35 off, like, which is baffling. So that one, definitely the Hayes family, Art and Ann and Jerry and Marley and Michelle, because they were the ones that hosted Ray and introduced me to him. You know, there's been all these families that just facilitated me for so long. I lived with him for like 5 years. You know, and then from there, Scott Jones and the UL team, Will and Tom Asher, you know, just, you know, the best roommates and training partners. I went and lived with them and their family one summer in England. And then from there, like Sonny Berry and Eileen Berry. I mean, those guys, they were, I mean, I got married at, you know, on the beach in front of their house.
No way.
Yeah. And, you know, yeah, they were, I mean, like, so Kara lost her father when she was a little girl. So, I mean, Sonny Berry gave Kara away at our wedding. So, I mean, crazy important, you know, in our lives. And then from there, like, you know, Mark and Kim Austin, you know, like when I first moved here, Mark was my training partner. We used to, you know, he was skiing 34, I was skiing 36, but we would bet lunch, you know,
right.
Loser bought lunch. And then, you know, now like Donnie Covington and his wife Lori, that's Freddie's sister. I mean, I coach their kids and I train with them daily. And so, I mean, and every skier is going to have this sort of same story, you know, of just these moments that changed everything, you know. So, too many people. My older brother for giving me a path, and it's wild, And you take out one of those pieces, and this thing doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true, and
that's why when you look back in hindsight, like that's why I was teetering on saying I wish I had done more. I wish I'd figured it out earlier. Like what it would have been nice to win a whole bunch of big events. But then that would have gotten in the way of this. I wouldn't be doing this had that happened, right? So. I'm lucky, man. I got just like a huge collection of students that I get to ski with on a daily basis, weekly basis, yearly basis. So yeah, I love it. I wouldn't change anything because this, like I said, these last couple of years are definitely what I'm proudest of as a skier.
Well, listen, man. This podcast has been one hell of a trip. Hopefully is going to be for a long time. One of the things I've learned for sure is that guests enjoy sharing their story. Like they find it or at the very least as an emotional, for the positive, for the most part, like a positive experience. Yeah. And so far, I haven't heard a single complaint of stories being boring. So don't even think about that for a second. I profoundly enjoyed hearing your journey, some of which I already knew because we're friends. Some of it I didn't know. So cool. Even for me, it's been true pleasure.
Awesome, appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you.